there's always a common pattern in all of those things. And I don't know if it's just the way the stars align. I don't know if it's just a common energy that goes on in a certain time of the year. But for whatever reason, a lot of the same type of person come and they all want to do the same activity.
Hi, I'm Ashleigh, and welcome to the Big Crystal Energy Podcast. This is a place for the crystal curious, arcane-minded, and everything in the in-between. In this podcast, we will jump down the rabbit hole into the metaphysical, esoteric, occult, and spiritual realms. Nothing is off limits. I'm a mom, wife, an orthopedic physician assistant by day, and a seeker of all things spooky and kooky by night. I've spent my entire career in the medical field, but have always felt like there is more out there, and this is where we will explore together. We will have conversations with crystal healers, rock hounds, artists, musicians, spiritual coaches, magic makers, and anything woo-woo that strikes our fancy. Let's take our spiritual journey to the next level. So grab a crystal, pour a cup of tea. It's time to feel the big crystal energy. Hello, and welcome back to the Big Crystal Energy Podcast. I'm Ashleigh, and thank you so much for joining me. I have a guest today that I am so excited about. I have Paula Victoria from P is for Palmistry, and yes, she's a palmist. She does palm readings, and I don't know what you normally think about when you think of a palm reader, but I don't think she's like the typical kind of girl that you would normally think of with all the things. She's just this amazing, beautiful gal that I found out about through another podcast, and I just loved hearing about her work and just all of the amazing insights that she could bring. And so I had a palm reading myself a year ago, and yeah, she is amazing. She has over 25 years of experience. She's also a new mom. So we have the new mom vibe going on here between her and I, and we can share that connection. So welcome, Paula, to the Big Crystal Energy Podcast. It's so lovely to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Ashleigh. I can't believe we're connecting a whole year later after your reading. And part of your reading was the podcast. So it's really an honor to be part of everything and join you on here.
Yay. It was a true dream when you agreed to come on. I mean, after I did my palm reading, I knew immediately that I would love to have you come on, but I didn't really know how I could make it all work, because at that time, in the earlier part of my podcast, it was like very crystal centric. But then as I have developed and I have gotten just down so many rabbit holes, I knew that I really wanted to expand. And now I feel like it all falls under the umbrella. And so when I connected with you, I was like, oh my gosh, this girl is fantastic. And I feel like my listeners could learn so much from you, and they would just really connect with your energy and how sweet you are. And the other thing that I just really love about you, which I mentioned kind of in the beginning, is that, a lot of times when people think of palm readers and palmistry, they get this idea of what someone might be. And I just love how you're just, just a regular person, just like me, and it doesn't have to be some weird kooky thing. Like, it's actually a beautiful way of learning about yourself and, connecting with your past and connecting with your future. And it's probably a lot different than what most people actually think it is.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned palmistry like that and the way that I present palmistry like that, because that's my hope, right? I don't want to come across as sort of like this, I don't know, kitschy palmistry only kind of thing, but it is palmistry I do see as just this part of interconnectivity with people and your community and about life. And it includes all the changes and lessons and the ebbs and flows that come along with that. So, I mean, it's my hope that that's the message that comes across with the way I see palmistry, and that people can use it as a tool rather than this scary thing that, what if I hear so and so,
For sure. I mean, I know that a lot of times, even with, oracle card readings that I like to do, or tarot, people are like, oh, you need to be very careful about that. And I'm just like, careful about looking at a card? I mean, I don't know what you think is going to happen here, but I mean, so it's not really, it's not really like fortune telling. It's just kind of drawing on these lines and different things to kind of help with whatever, but you're never going to be able to say specifically what will happen in somebody's life.
Correct. Yes. I mean, some people do use palmistry as a medium along with the fortune telling aspect, along with mediumship, along with any sort of, channeling in a different sense. I feel like, yes, there is channeling that goes along with the readings that I do, but the way in which it happens is very different than this, prophetic, psychic experience, right? I never tell people I'm psychic. That's my big thing. Because if they're like, well, if you're psychic, can you see this and that? And certain aspects of their relationships with people. And I always say, listen, this is your palm. This is your reading. I can tell you how you interact in the situation, but I can't tell you about your family drama. I can't tell you about, who your future husband is going to be. It's up to you and it's up to them to make their way, you make your ways to each other or make amends with each other. So there are different readers who do approach it differently, but definitely not the way I see palmistry and not the way that I teach it. So.
Yes, I love that. So I learned a lot about you just kind of from reading about you in your bio on your website. And, what I got from it is that you really saw you learned about it from as a child, right? With your grandmother?
Mm-hmm. So my grandmother was not a palm reader by any means. So before anyone gets the idea that it's this family treasure that we pass along and it's protected, that's not at all the case. I wish that would be a really cool story to tell, but hopefully this is equally as cool to share. My grandmother, my mom's side we're Filipino on that side, and she is very superstitious Catholic, as a lot of Filipinos are.
I do know that. A lot of Filipinos in my family as well, on my husband's side.
There you go. So it's that kind of energy, but she made palmistry into this game where I feel like a lot of grandmas and aunties, they look at your hand and they tell you, oh, you're going to get married rich, you're going to find a doctor and all this stuff and live happily ever after, and you're going to make a lot of money. And that's always the thing in Asian families you want to hear is like, you're going to marry well and make a lot of money. And that's the happy ending. So it was little games like that. It was, my grandmother was a huge romantic. So it was a lot of romance in there and, little things like that. So it wasn't to the depth in which now I know palmistry, but it was more than I think most people would know. And so she was the little tidbits that I learned. And then from there it grew and I studied it on my own, and it became this way of connecting with, friends on the playground and going to the New Age section in Barnes and Noble and sitting there and camping out and going through all the books, which there's not a lot about palmistry, but you find the couple and you're like, okay, I can sit here for hours and go through the pages. And so that was sort of how it grew as a child. We would just be sitting in the garden and she'd say, okay, what do you think of this line? Did you see this? Do you notice this in your hand? So that's how it sort of grew. Later on, actually, since I started doing this professionally in the last couple of years, we found out from my mother's oldest sister that she learned palmistry from a woman who would be sort of like word of mouth on call in the neighborhood and would come to the house and read the family's fortunes. And the whole family would come over and she would do tarot and mediumship and palmistry and everything. And that was her stop for the day. Like she would do one stop a day, and it was like lucky if you got her to come over. And so apparently my grandmother had called her much more often than we thought. And so my thought is my grandmother was really interested, especially in the romance side of it because of knowing her. But she would call on her often and so often, in fact, that she learned enough to pass that on to me. And so it was just sort of this lucky happening of the universe having people meet and things happening for a reason to come down generationally to 3 generations later, But yeah, I love that. I'm very grateful for this woman who I will never meet and hopefully one day maybe find some connection to, but yeah, just magical in that way.
I love that story. It's so cool. And I just think that it's so interesting how, this thing that you learned as a child, how now you've been able to translate that from your childhood now into adulthood and making a business out of it. I think that is just such a beautiful like arc in your story. And, you know, I relate to that so much too, because a lot of the things that I am working on and studying and putting into my podcast are all things that I very much loved as a child. But I personally suppressed it for a long time. Is that something that you ever experienced? Like that you didn't really work with it for a long time and then you came back to it?
Absolutely. So as a kid, there was palmistry, but it was also, now that I look back at it, I was really obsessed with Harry Potter growing up. That wasn't the start of it, but that was also within all of this. So I was just a fantasy girl, and I was into reading Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, like all of those books. And I would read at recess. So I was very much bury your nose in a book kind of person. And, I got really into, you know, witchcraft in a playful sense. Like it wasn't a very serious thing. I honestly didn't know that it was a practice until much later in life. I grew up going to Catholic school, went to church every Sunday. I was in the church choir. So that was my upbringing. So after sort of that childhood of fantasizing about, you know, worlds far away and reading all of these books and collecting things with that, it stopped when we had to start thinking about college and thinking about high school careers and college careers and making money and all of that. And then people started thinking about the taboo of all of this practice. And then you get busy, right? Like you get busy, you have to work, you have to do the grind and the hustle and all of that. So I found the dreaming in other things like art. I went to school for art history and fine art and curatorial studies and learning about, you know, the history of these things that we're learning about, and maybe there's lost context too. So it translated into other things, but it was not palmistry. Sort of the historical background of the societies in which palmistry was woven into, but are not in history books, right? And then came back much later in life, probably like eight years ago now. And then grew from there. The business grew from there.
Did you experience any, I don't know, I don't want to say pushback, or did you experience any kind of like, why are you leaving a normal career to go into this that's kind of different? Or is this even real? I mean, did you experience any of that?
So it's really funny you say that, because growing up, my family's dream was for me to be a doctor. My mom is a doctor. She's retired now. We're
your
very
mom's
happy for her. Yeah. And a lot of my family's in some sort of medical practice. So it was sort of like, well, that's kind of the route we want for you. It's stable. That's what makes money. And very, very young, my mom realized that was not where my gifts were. I was always the artsy kid. I was always trying to skip out on science and dissection in high school. It's like, I'm sick. I can't go to school today. And it was fetal pig dissection by chance, you know?
I mean, that is kind of gross, but.
So that was never my thing. And so I was kind of pushed more in like the artistic direction, luckily. And that was just sort of my strength. So I always was sort of on that other side of things. And I did not find interior design. It was a career switch. So found that later on. And I still am a designer. Right now, things are on pause, and I'm very happy to be focusing more on palmistry, it's a lot of fun. It's been fun this year since baby arrived. But when palmistry started, I was kind of expecting my mom to say, you know, well, you went back to grad school, you know, like you have a continuing, you know, degree education in this new field that you're in. I was doing really well. So it wasn't like I was struggling and I couldn't find work. I, you know, stumbled upon dream jobs on paper and could have continued in that route, in that direction. And I'm in LA, so lots of clients to be found, a lot of people wanting beautiful spaces and all of that. But as soon as I started palmistry and I started talking about it more on Instagram, and she would see my posts, she was really proud and really excited. So it was like
Beautiful.
surprise. So now there's a lot of more excitement around it, I think. And a lot of the kindness that comes from my palm readings is celebrated, and is there's like a pride behind it, I think, of the relationship I get to form with people, rather than seeing it as this taboo practice. So
Right. That's really cool.
yeah.
And I love how
Yeah.
I love the way, you probably have been able to take some of that background that you have and translate it into your social media, because I love all your posts. I love just like the way that you design them and everything, because it just has the beautiful, just like the colors and everything, just, it feels very accessible, I think is what I think. It just feels very accessible for regular people, and it doesn't feel so, overly mystical, because I mean, most of the time when you think about when you see these things, you see the signs on the side of the freeway of like the palm, and then it says like psychic palm reader, and it just
Totally.
feels really cheesy. And, your site, your posts and things come along, and it just feels, it has like such an energy to it that just feels so relatable to anybody.
No, thank you. That's really lovely
Yeah.
feedback. I'm glad. I'm glad they feel that way, because it's hard sometimes when, I'm sure, if I know with you and anyone who's listening who has an Instagram, who has a small business, and they're trying to get information out there, it's hard because it feels like this void, and you're just sitting alone in your home trying to make these posts, hoping someone sees them because of the
Mhm.
algorithm, that
Oh,
the
yes.
and so that makes me very happy, because I do want it to be accessible. I want everyone to be able to understand the information. I want to break it down so people can see it, because I do think that there's a lot of benefit in looking at your hands. They're attached to you. If you have both hands, they're attached to you, and it's information, like literally at the tips of your fingers, that you
Yes.
can see about yourself and learn. Right? Might not be your everyday practice, but some things you can check in on.
Yes. So for the people that are unfamiliar with palmistry, can you kind of explain what it is and how it works?
Sure. So palmistry is, very simply put, the study and the divinatory practice of looking at your hands, all aspects of your hands. So the shapes of your hands, the texture of your skin, the lines on your hands, the fingerprints that you have, even the mounts of your hands, what's higher, what's lower, everything translates to something. And it's looking into your past, it's looking into your future, and it's looking in your present. And so in that study, sometimes there is that, the aspect of fortune telling, if you will, of peeping into the future and seeing what there is, but it changes as you make decisions. So it's not like a one stop, you get a reading and that's the fate for the rest of your life, right? So it's the study of where you are now, essentially, and where you could go, like a possible paths.
I see. So what are some of like the main major features of a palm reading?
Sure. So I love to dissect the palm reading and teach as I go along. I don't know if you remember from your reading, but my
I
favorite
do.
example is building a DIY pizza.
Yes. I
Um,
loved that example. It really makes sense.
yeah. Good, good.
Hmm.
The aspects of your hands, think about making a pizza. You are rolling out the dough. You are putting the sauce on, whatever your sauce is, and the cheese, and all of the toppings. And the pizza could be a square, it could be a heart, it could be a circle, any of that. So same thing goes with hands. If you have two hands, everyone has different shaped hands. And I'm sure that some people who have hands that may not look like other people's hands, they notice right away. And some people, if their hands are just, what they think are typical hands, you don't notice. But the shape of your hand means something. There's elemental shapes, and this is Western palmistry. There are different types. So the palmistry I practice, there's 4 general shapes. Then you have the lines on your hand. You also have the mounts underneath each of the fingers and in different areas of the hand, and then the fingers.
Hmm.
You also have your fingerprints, and then you have your nails, which is a whole other divinatory practice in itself. But there are, little things in general palmistry you can study the nails
Oh,
with
wow,
as
that's
well.
interesting.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool. I mean, I remember when we did our reading together, you said that
Hmm.
I have fire hand,
Yes, you do
right?
have fire
Because of the
hands.
shape, because it's more of like a square. Is that right?
It's
Or a
so you have
rectangle?
a rectangular shaped palm, and then the fingers are typically in fire hand. The fingers are shorter than the length of the palm. So from the base of, if you're listening and not watching, right, it's the base of your hand where your wrist starts to the bottom of your fingers. And then you take that length and then measure it against your finger length. So I also have fire hands. I know you are very much a fire hand now that I've gotten to know
Yes,
you better from like
very much.
online and our exchange in your readings. So
Mhm.
very, very fire energy.
What are the other, are they just the other elements or what are the other shapes?
So in Western palmistry, there is fire hands, water hands, air hands, and earth hands. And so earth and air have the square shape palms, and then
I see.
water and fire have rectangular palms. And they all, you can have combinations of the different hands. So that's why there's the four general shapes, but then you can kind of study someone's hand and look at, it's not only the shape of the hand, it's also the line quality. So you can take a look at their line quality, you can take a look at the shape and go from there. And there's different feelings of each of those hand types, different strengths.
Do you see correlations between people's hand shapes and like their zodiac sign? Because I mean, I have my fire hands, but then I'm also a fire sign. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
the Sagittarius sun. Um, do you see that a lot, or does it just kind of, is it various?
It varies a lot. Sometimes, usually, if someone is a fire sign and they are a fire hand, for example, they'll point it out if they know astrology. They're like, "Well, I'm also actually a fire sign." But what's really interesting, and I love to see, is when someone is, let's say, a fire hand, but they lack fire totally in their chart,
Interesting.
and so it feels almost like this full circle completion of, well, I'm not lacking something, because that always
Mm-hmm.
makes me sad if someone's like, well, I have an unbalanced astrological natal chart,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like I'm lacking this one element. And that happens a lot in in Chinese natal charts as well. My wife is Chinese and our daughter is half Chinese. And so when we were thinking of her Chinese name, which we're still thinking of, we still have not come up with a name. She has a name on her birth certificate, but
How old
we're
is she
looking for,
now?
she's 5 months. So
Oh, okay.
but my wife is a Libra and she's a Libra, so I'll leave it at that. So where there's a lot of decision making going on behind that, but she's also, I believe, lacking in fire, and so it makes me sad when someone feels like they're lacking. I never want that, so it makes me happy to share that there's something somewhere else in their life that comes in. It's not just in the stars.
Wow, that's so interesting.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel, especially now as I've gotten older, I don't know, like this whole fire side of me, I don't really think I expressed that fully when I was younger. But now as I've gotten older and I just feel like I've really come into who I am, that fire, I just feel it coming out like so strongly. And so it was really interesting when my palm reading showed that. And then also my astrology shows that. And now I'm just like, all the time.
Good. Good,
I
you
try to
should.
tame
I
it a little
feel,
bit.
don't tame it. Let
I
it
mean,
be. Express it. I feel like society wants us to be more like what an earth hand is. Earth hands, I have little nicknames for all the hand types, and earth hands are, I call the stabilizers, right? Where they want the stability, they want a routine, they want a schedule. There's high and low seasons. And I love earth hands. When earth hand sits down, I can tell before I see their hand, because they just have that very grounding energy. And I think I love it because I'm also a fire hand and it feels good. I'm like, oh,
mhm.
someone's tethering me, right? Like I feel like I'm not floating and I'm bouncing around and flickering, right? So it feels good, but not everyone's meant to be that way, right? Sometimes you need to dance around like flame flickers. Like you need to
Yes, that's true.
explore and be loud.
That's true. I know that one of the things that you had said from my reading was that I am a motivator. And based on, I forget what it was based on one of my lines. You were talking about how, actually, just based on the shape, it was saying here that I'm a
Yeah.
motivator to myself and others.
So
And
that's a fire hand.
Yeah.
to is
And
a
I was like, oh
motivator.
my gosh. Yeah, that really resonated with me because I feel like I'm always trying to cheer on my friends and cheer on people, to just make them feel like they can do and go after the things that they want and build people up. And I always feel like a cheerleader. I was never a cheerleader in high school, and I never really felt like that. But I just feel like as I've gotten older, I just want to cheer people on because I feel like people have so much potential within inside themselves that they just oftentimes don't see. And it's like, it's so nice to,
Beautiful.
I think that
Hmm.
people just need that encouragement sometimes.
Absolutely. I think that's my favorite part of being a palm reader too. I actually just did an event last night, similarly to what you're saying, like just cheering people on and giving people that hope that, a lot of people are looking for, especially right now, is just like hope in everyday life and what's to come and, moving forward, what's happening and just getting answers. But I did this event. It was a corporate event, and I did 10-minute, shorter readings than what I typically do. So I sit down with someone and sort of like intuitively what comes out first, I'll say and see if they have questions. And just being able, it was a vision boarding event actually, and I was, one of
Fun.
the little side activities that people can schedule. And so I got to sit there with people as they're vision boarding and cutting things out of magazines and imagining all these things in their life, and then I get to tell them all these great things about themselves that oftentimes people forget, like you forget, like for example, when you're younger, the things you love, right? And then they come back full circle, hopefully, or you're reminded that, I am really good at that. I am really good at understanding people's energies. Even though I do design, I was a pre-med track, and I really would love to do healthcare design. Or, there's all of these things that reawaken in someone as they're sitting there and hearing about themselves from someone else, and I hope it resonates with them, but a lot of the times they're like, wow, that was really spot on. And that's the hope for people to just be cheered
Yeah,
on.
I love that. Okay, so, as far as you've probably seen just so many hands, are there common patterns that you see or anything that ever surprises you?
Yeah, I'm always, I feel like in my study of palmistry, I'm always looking for patterns. I feel like my whole life is being this pattern finder and
Hmm.
and looking for processes and things and patterns and things. And I notice that whenever I go to a market or have a big event, or if I have a lot of online readings booked for a week, there's always a common pattern in all of those things. And I don't know if it's just the way the stars align. I don't know if it's just a common energy that goes on in a certain time of the year. But for whatever reason, a lot of the same type of person come and they all want to do the same activity in a day. So
Interesting.
I'll use the example of the event I did yesterday because it just happened. And there was a lot of healer energy, and it was a
Mm,
design event. So for whatever reason,
interesting.
there's a lot of, and I always say that that's a calling in someone's hand. I know that that's in your hand as well, having, the healing mark, healer stigmata. There was a lot of healing. There was also a lot of specific type of travel, which I thought was interesting. So I saw several people who came to me yesterday who had moved at a very young age. And it happened to be, I think, 3 different people who moved at the age of 9. So it was very specific, and I could see that in
Hmm.
their hands. So it looked like
Wow, that's so
a very
interesting.
specific lifeline. And
Huh?
when the second person sat down, I was like, I swear I just read someone with the same hand as you, like a very, very similar hand. And then another person sat down, I'm like, what is going on? And I was like, did you move at 9? And they're like, how did you know? And I was like, you're the
That's
third
crazy.
person to move at 9. Yeah. So little synchronicities like that do happen. And I just think it's the universe. It's just energy. I have no control over that. Sometimes I'll read only water hands at an event. Like a few weeks ago, I worked an event, and I read, it was very, very short readings. And I think, how many people did I read? It must have been like 25
Oh my
people,
goodness.
something like that, in an evening. It was a lot. And I sat down with everyone like 2-3 minutes each, and it was a very, very quick exchange. And I would say that, 23 out of 25 people were water hands, and that rarely happens to
That
me.
is
So water hands,
crazy.
I call the creators. They're very empathetic and sensitive. So it was this whole event at a yoga studio, actually, and everyone was in their flow, which I thought was really funny. But that does happen. There are days or weeks where there's just that one pattern that keeps coming up. Lately this year, the last month, the big question is love. So I don't know if that's Venus in retrograde or if that's
Mm-hmm.
just people on the prowl, beginning of the year, setting their goals,
Mm-hmm.
But it is, you go through periods where people only ask about career, and you go through periods where people only ask about love, and they just want to know. So
Do you feel like those are the two most common things that people are trying to find out about?
I do. And that's very broad. I feel like career, you can ask a lot of things like, am
Yeah.
I in the right career transition? Sometimes I get people in their early 20s and they're wondering what career to do, what career to take, what path to take. But I would say that in career, the common question is transition questions, wanting to do one thing versus another, what path to take. And then in love, if someone is in a relationship, it's when are they going to propose, which I feel like is very, I feel like stereotypical of a
Mm-hmm.
psychic reading or any kind
Yeah.
of reading. You're going to sit people like, when are they going to propose? When am I going to find my person? And kids. So I would say those are the common ones.
Well, yeah, I could see that. I mean, I think probably one of the, I mean, even for myself, I mean, one of the things, not only was I just interested in a general reading, I think more than anything, I just was interested in a general reading, but I also was kind of at this point where what I'm doing and what I'm feeling, am I on the right track? And I feel since you and I have talked and I've had my reading with you, and then I've also had an Akashic record reading and different things, and and I've talked to psychic mediums, and I've had just all these different people, and everybody, it's so interesting how everything the message keeps coming through very similar. So, I mean, I feel like there really is something to it, right? It can't be just nothing if this person who doesn't know me is saying this about me and this person that doesn't know me is saying this. There has to be something to it. And I think that is what overall is so fascinating. And that's why I just feel, it gives me peace and it makes me feel confident going forward, even though the path is not quick.
Right.
People expect overnight success and instantaneous results. And, people ask me, well, how many people are listening and how many downloads? It's like, well, that stuff takes time. I mean, any business, anything takes time. It doesn't just happen like that. I mean, that's what you see on TV, and that's what they feed you on all these different platforms. But the reality is that isn't usually the way that it works.
Correct. Right. There's no overnight success, no matter how intuitive or lucky you are. Right. That's not how it works. And there's no overnight happiness. There's not any sort of spell or potion or chant or mantra you can do or say that will have that. But it's a journey, and it's a good thing. I'm so glad that you shared that you've done several readings and they all aligns, because that's a really positive thing to hear. Sometimes someone will sit with me and say, this reminds me just of this reading, or they told me the exact same thing. And that's when I have to tell people, listen, I don't consider myself psychic. Yes, I'm tapping into asking support from guides and channeling whatever comes through in that sense, but I don't consider myself like a channeler. That's not how I present myself, right? I'm just telling you what's coming through, and I'm telling you exactly what's on your hands. So it's not coming from nowhere. It's starting from a physical point and it's being shared with you. And when you hear the message several times, it's meant to be heard for you. It means that you're either not acting on it yet, or you need extra validation or confirmation before you do act on it, and you get there. So everyone's guides are working together to help share a message with you that's very important for you.
Wow. Yeah. I have a question about just your energy as far as, when you have an event where you're reading so many people, at the end of the event, do you feel drained? Do you feel energized? Or do you just feel like, okay, and you just go on home? I don't, because usually for me, at the end of my day, especially when I'm seeing patients in the clinic, there's just so much energy going out that I often feel so exhausted by the end of the day. Just that mental load and like carrying the emotions of people's physical and emotional and all their needs. It's very draining for me.
Hey, sorry to interrupt, but I have something you need to hear. Have you been feeling a shift, a pull towards something more? Whether you're manifesting new opportunities, confidence, or a major glow up, the universe is listening, and I've got just the thing. In a crystal clarity call, I'll intuitively select 3 crystals to support your manifestations, pull a tarot or oracle card for deeper guidance, and craft custom journal prompts to help you take action. It's more than a reading, it's an energetic roadmap. So if you're ready to align with your highest self, DM me on Instagram at mystical.mama.ash for details and pricing. Let's bring your magic to life.
Yeah, I can relate to that a lot. So when I was much younger, I feel like there's always been this sense of me being this energy for people to come to and share things with, right, and open up with, and the emotional energy is the most difficult. So it's hard for me as a child, I think, and for me growing up until a certain point. And then when I started doing readings and I had my first few big events, I was so exhausted at the end. I remember the first market I had, I read maybe it was like 7 people, but I was sitting there for hours, and it was my first time doing it. So there's the nervousness, right?
Yes.
How is this going to be received back to back? And I'm seeing people in person after the pandemic, and there was the nervousness behind it. And my wife drove us home, and I fell asleep in the car, and I had to sleep the whole next day. I was just in bed recharging. I was exhausted. And then I had a reading shortly after that with a friend of mine, Jen, and she gave me the best advice, because I told her, she asked how the event went, and I said, I'm so exhausted. How do you do this? Because I want to, I enjoy it, but I'm so tired. I'm also working another job. Like, I can't possibly be doing both of these things, but I don't want to lose this. I really love what I'm doing. And she gave the best advice of, you're not using your own energy. And since then, I've been energized after these events. And I feel like the hosts are always more concerned for me than I am for myself. I'm like, listen, I'm fine. So she said, don't use your own energy. Ask for support from your guides, from your ancestors. And since then, the funnest thing has been going to events and tapping into that. Anytime I go to an event, this is like a funny inside scoop, because I don't think anyone knows this except like one other person outside my family. I always listen to the Beyonce Renaissance album. I don't know why. It's that album pumps me up, and no other album. I cannot listen to anything else. It's sort of like, athletes doing their weird things before a match or a game.
Yes.
Yeah, wearing the
That's
lucky
so funny.
socks. Yeah,
I was actually going to ask you that. I had that on my paper here. I was going to say, what do you listen to pump you up? And so now we know.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, what a specific question. Yeah. Beyonce's, that specific album though, the Renaissance album, from the beginning to the end. And then if I have a shorter commute, I'll pick certain songs, so I listen to that album, and then I get to the event, and what I consider my guides, my ancestors, like going to a big family potluck party, like a Filipino loud karaoke there. You're in the garden. You have all the big food platters out. Everyone's fighting over the last lumpia rolls. So I'm literally hanging out at a family party the whole event. And that's so cool, because those are my favorite memories growing up. And it feels like that. It feels like the messages coming through, and just the energy that comes through is out of love and chismes, gossip, and they just want to kind of get people excited and hopeful, so I feel like there's this whole lineage of my family that just has that similar energy, and that's the hope that I pass along. And then every now and then when there's a harder message to pass along, I don't know who that is wherever they are, but there are those special moments where those messages get pushed through, and I feel like I need to share those things. But it feels like everyone's karaokeing to Beyonce's Renaissance album every time I'm at an
That's so
event, and
cool.
it's the best.
That
And I'm
is so
hungry,
cool.
but besides being hungry, I feel really good.
I love that so much. But I really think that's cool advice too. I think maybe after we get off our call here or our interview, I'm going to do a little journaling about that because, I've been working really hard on cultivating my energy before my days of being around so many different people because it's hard to come home and feel so drained because
Absolutely.
that's where one job ends, but then I come home and my mom job starts and I don't like carrying that. I like having energy for my family in the evenings. And, my husband, he works with me. So he has the same job as I do. So it's just, both of us, it's that intensity and, just trying to find ways to mitigate it. And then also, find ways for us to just manage that energy so that we're not bringing it home with our family since both of us are in that environment. Because I do like the work that I do. It's just that at times it can be it's very exhausting. And I mean, anytime you're giving you're having just conversation after conversation with people, and for me, I have like my whole setup at my desk. I've got my crystals, I've got my cards, I've got my broom, I've got my bells. It's like,
Everything.
we know where the office witch is. And everybody loves sitting at my desk. They all make fun of me, but yet they all want to sit at my desk.
You've got all the good energy.
I have all the good energy there.
All
Yeah.
protected. Everything
it's so
is
good. I come in, I spray my spray, I'm brooming out my space. I'm like, come on, let's get the day going. It really helps though. Honestly, it just helps so much.
It does. I feel like anyone's practice, anyone's routine like that, their protective elements that they add to their day, it makes a huge difference. Crystals, I need to learn more about crystals from you. Make a huge difference. I always have the same crystals at each event, and I could not tell you which they are because someone picked them out for me at this the shop that I do readings at, Tiny Bandit. Heather picked out these crystals that I have at all of the events that I'm at, and it helps, right? Like since I've had those, it's elevated everything, and that it makes a difference.
Yes.
And I think that, not using your own energy, what I said is much easier said than it is done. It's not like I was given the advice and then it happened the next day, right? It took me, at least a couple months of doing events and doing readings to really get into a groove of it and to understand, I think, more intuitively how it felt. Because it's not an action you take, right? It's more of like a feeling that you practice, I think, and calling in that you practice. So,
of course,
keep me posted.
Oh, I know. I'm always just like, we're all just a work in progress, I feel like.
Yeah.
Do you feel that palmistry has kind of changed the way that you kind of walk through life? Do you feel like now that you really spend a lot of time with this, has it changed your perspective on things?
Totally. I think that in getting into this, I sort of reluctantly got into palmistry again. I started my Instagram account to just kind of journal my findings. And then somehow it turned into taking online readings overnight, but not really overnight, but like over time. All of a sudden I was taking readings, and then it became a business, and then it grew, and I was trying to grow my career as an interior designer. So I at first was pushing back so much. And then I think as soon as I gave myself permission to have fun and go to events and meet other readers and healers, it really changed the way that I see connecting with people and understanding and meeting people where they're at on a totally different level. I think one of my favorite things about myself is that I consider myself to be very empathetic and understanding where people are. But I think in reading people, you really understand things differently, and you understand how to ask hard questions or frame things in a way where people feel comfortable opening up. And people were doing that to me anyway, but I was always wondering where it was coming from. And now that readings sort of frame that out, it gives direction to where a conversation's going and kind of leads how someone might need guidance or support or cheering on. So it has changed that connectivity of people. And I think in doing larger events where I read multiple people in one day, it helps me to see, and I hope that I should share this with people more, on the internet and wherever I talk to people on podcasts, right? That everyone is similar in ways that they don't know, right? You might not know that you're in a space full of strangers, whether it's 20 people in a room, 5 people at a table, 3,000 people walking through a fair, and everyone is there with similarities and everyone has more in common than they think. No one's a stranger really. So it's a beautiful way to see the world, for me at least, and I hope to share that with people, and I hope people find what makes them see the world like that, if it's not palmistry, because everyone's got different mediums.
For sure. That's really cool. I love how you said that. I mean, it makes sense. I do feel that too, because, I see so many people throughout the day, but at the end of the day, most people have very similar wants and needs, at the core of who they are. And, we all have different careers and different ways that we live our lives, but many of the things are very similar. And just having that connectivity about things is just, I think for me, it also helps. I mean, I'm a very empathetic person too. And I think people sense that when they are with me. And so, I try to draw on that too, to just make people feel comfortable and make them feel like they're not alone and that there's a lot of people that are going through similar things. And even if, even if we're in a hard time, I mean, there's other people going through it, and, we're all connected in some way. I mean, we're all on this earth living this earthly experience. And, at the end of the day, we're just human beings living this experience. I wish more people were more kind to each other, especially in these times. Very challenging times right now.
Yes. And you can tell the shift, you can tell, for sure. Like coming back to markets after, being away on leave for a little bit and spending time with the family, and hermiting for a little bit. I've been hearing from other people who have continually been doing markets that there's definitely like the shift in energy, and people are now looking for guidance much more than before. It reminds me energetically of what the beginning of the pandemic felt like.
Sure.
And I hate to kind of say it like that, but in a way, when people are looking for hope, spirituality kicks in, and that search for what could be kicks in. And I think that this is a really great medium. Any sort of practice like this is like a self-study practice, right? Is a great way of understanding the world differently and seeing people differently and being able to empathize with people differently. And you're working, in an environment where people are very vulnerable and they're looking for that person, right? And they're looking for that comfort. And so it's really, I'm at a market where someone, or like online, people are in the comfort of their homes, or they're having a great day out with friends, and maybe they're thinking about something in the back of their head, but they're not at their most vulnerable, right? Like they've got kind of their outward public shell on, and so you're getting to connect with people on this very vulnerable personal level where you're giving them exactly what they need. And I think that's beautiful. That's very much healer energy,
Yeah. I know you said that. You said that my palms show a lot of healer energy.
Yeah.
And it's interesting though, because I'm like, oh, I just want to leave my regular job and work on more fun stuff. But at the end of the day, I know that my transition is going at the rate that it's supposed to be going. I'm not ready. Yes. I think there's times when, sometimes we think that we want things to go from 0 to 100, but we're actually not really ready for that. Mm-hmm. So we have to learn things along the way to get us prepared for the next level. And I just feel like definitely I'm in that stage of just learning and absorbing and learning from so many interesting people such as yourself. I mean, there's just what you realize when you start tapping into all these different things is there's just so many interesting things to learn out there. And there's so many interesting people to talk to. And there's so many interesting perspectives on the world. And that's the part that I have found really exciting and fun. So I mean, when you go to these markets, you're meeting all different kinds of people that have all different types of healing modalities that they're
It's
working on
incredible.
people.
And exactly, it's in saying you're a healer. I'm not saying, hey, you're trapped at
Yes.
a place that you want to transition from, right? Like,
Yes.
not at all, right? The way that you express it, there's endless possibilities.
Hmm.
And I'm still discovering practices that I've never heard of before. Or maybe someone has a gift and they find a new way of expressing it that hasn't been created before. There's a lot of that out there, and there's validity in all of it. Some of my favorite readings are things I've never heard of, and they resonate with me the most.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's exciting. It'll be really interesting to see where healing, or where in your reading, it was all healing and communicating, right? And
Hmm.
you're kind of doing both.
Both. Yeah.
Yeah, in a lot of different ways. So it'll be interesting to see where that takes you, the combination or separately of those gifts that you have. Because I feel like in our life, we live many lives.
For sure. And I think like
Yeah.
one of the big things that I want to do on this platform is that I'm not really an expert in a lot of the things that I talk about, but I love to bring on people that really know a lot about it, because I just think that having a way of sharing all this stuff is so important. And especially because,
Mm-hmm.
as we talked about before, so many things can get kind of lost within the algorithms of social media. And if you're not searching for certain things, then you have no exposure to them. So, I mean,
Right.
as the modern society has evolved, and we're becoming more accepting of all these different types of healing modalities, which is really cool, because, traditional Western medicine in certain aspects is great and is necessary and needed, but
Right.
sometimes people
Mm-hmm.
need alternative healing. And I think that's really cool.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I feel like there's so much untapped in Western culture with that, or there's a lot of focus on maybe one or two aspects of, alternative medicine or Eastern medicine practices, and a lot is unexplored, or is still considered really taboo,
Hmm.
unfortunately, and people aren't willing to explore it because of WebMD, or
Oh, of course.
whatever their doctor tells them, or what's worked in the past but might not be working now. So there's all of that. But yeah, you're right. There's a lot of different ways to go about it.
Yeah. So if someone was interested in palmistry, do you have do you have any recommendations? Do you have a book that you like, a website, a class? Like, what would be a good way for someone if they wanted to explore it more? How would they get into it?
Sure. So this is always a tough question with the book recommendations, right? Because there's a lot of levels of books. You can
Sure.
easily Google, palmistry how to, and there's a lot of shorter format books that you can find either at, like online or in a bookstore, that are more picture based. And then there are more textbook based books. So one of my favorite ones is The Art and Science of Palmistry. It's a textbook.
In the
And
science of palmistry. Okay.
yeah, let me,
I'll put it in our
yeah, but
I'll put it in your
I'll
show
send
notes.
you the more
Okay.
information on like who the author is and everything. I'm blanking off the top of my head. But The Art and Science of Palmistry, and it's more of like a textbook, pretty thick. It's got all the details about all the lines, the mounts, timing, everything. And it's literally formatted like a textbook. It's my Bible. Like, I love
Hmm.
that book. So if anyone is looking for a deep dive, or if they've taken some classes, I would recommend that. I wouldn't recommend, hey, I want to just learn a little bit about the lifeline. Like, don't get that book. It'll sit on your bookshelf and you won't want to learn more. I feel like it's a little
Yes.
intimidating. But there's also just this little, it's a square book. And I think I picked it up at like a Barnes and Noble 20 years ago. It's called The Palmistry Bible. And I think that book is just really heavily based on images, and
Hmm.
it has a really good overall sense of every little aspect that you could just go to one page and see exactly what you would want to see on your hand, and it's really easily digestible. um, Other than that, I am actually in the process of publishing a book. Uh,
Beautiful.
yeah, but it's for children. It's a
Mm-hmm.
children's how-to for palmistry
Oh,
called In Your
cool.
Hands, a kid's guide to palmistry. But it is for everyone, I think. So I wrote it for kids, but it's really, I think, digestible for everyone, because you know how some kids will get really into dinosaurs, or they'll get really into
Yes.
stones, and then they'll study these books that like adults don't even know this kind of information, and
Yes.
then they know every kind of dinosaur that is, right? And I
Yes.
feel like anything could be like that. Palmistry could be like that. So it's for a kid who's really interested and wants to see the world through that lens. And I feel like we should have palmistry as a class, because it's a good way to understand people and understand what you might be good at and what you could try, you know, like it's a good starting point.
That sounds so
Um,
exciting. I'm excited. I can't wait. I'm going to get that book when it comes out. I can't wait because I will definitely be sharing it with my children because I want to read their hands too.
Yay. Oh,
Their cute little
amazing.
hands.
Yeah. And
So
hopefully
do
they'll
you,
enjoy it.
oh yes, if it's anything, they like all the stuff that their mom likes. Sometimes they try, well, my youngest, he's 2, so he doesn't really know yet, but my oldest,
Oh,
he tries to be cool, but deep down, he likes it. He likes it all. So, just, for fun, because I'm a crystal enthusiast, do you have a personal favorite crystal or stone that you like? I mean, you said you don't really know any of their names, but is there one that you
no.
do know? Do you have like one that sits on your table at your events that you really love? Maybe just tell me what it looks like and I can guess.
So oh my goodness. I should have known, and I should have maybe looked up the names of them. I will tell you what they look like and maybe you'll know. So um, I have quartz, just like I
Yeah.
always have quartz with me.
Yes.
And there's there's 2 pink ones. This is this is the basics
So
of crystals I know.
maybe it's like a rose quartz.
I think that there is like a rose quartz, but it's unfinished, right? It's not a
Huh?
polished rose
It's like a
quartz.
raw rose quartz.
Because
Uh-huh.
it, yes, it's a raw, and it's because I know it's related for love readings. It's there
Yes.
for
Okay. So you
all the
got quartz
people
and
looking
rose
for love.
quartz.
Yes,
Okay.
and then I
Okay. We
have
got
another
2.
pink one that's communication. So it's pink
Okay.
and black, and it's kind of
Oh,
like
that's probably
marbled.
rhodonite. I love
Yes,
rhodonite.
okay. So it is, wow, I love this. Okay, this is like a guest
Uh-huh.
booth for crystals with
Yeah.
me.
Uh-huh.
So I have that, and it's sort of like not pyramid shaped, but like a tower shaped.
Oh,
And I
selenite,
love that.
probably.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
this.
no,
Let
it's
me
it's the
grab mine.
rhodonite, but it's
Oh,
shaped
it's
like
rhodonite. Oh, it's
yeah.
rhodonite. I thought maybe you'd have something like that because this is really common. Like I see a lot of people have like little selenite towers like that, but
I
yours is
think that's
probably the
next on
rhodonite.
my list. And I really want something like that. But I'm worried about it splintering off when I travel a lot. So
It,
I think I now have
yeah,
a protective cover,
you'll
but
have to wrap it a little bit because I had a selenite sphere in my office, and my kids
uh-huh.
they picked it up and dropped it on the ground, and it broke. But then it was all those
Oh
little
no.
like those little
The
shards. I mean, nobody got
shards.
cut or anything, but I had never broken one open before, so I didn't realize how it was those little pieces like that. It was kind of
Mm-hmm.
interesting. It wasn't an expensive piece by any means, so I wasn't totally devastated as if it was one of my favorite pieces, but for sure. Well, so you need to learn. Okay, I'm going to learn more about palmistry. You're going to learn more about crystals, and then
Yes.
we're going to
Well,
reconvene.
information exchange, and then learn about, I
Yes,
need to get better with crystals, because sometimes people will ask for recommendations for rings, because you can
sure,
actually, this is a great combination between the two
for
actually, where
sure.
you can wear rings on certain fingers with crystals
Yes,
and heighten the
yes.
abilities of those fingers. So I need to
Oh my
learn
gosh,
because of
I should
that.
totally do a podcast episode about that, and then I can consult you for what like some information about the fingers, and then I can put together some rings,
Yes,
and we can do a collab. So let's
I
circle back
love
to
that.
that.
Yes,
Let's
yes, we
circle
should
back to
do
that.
that.
So,
And I have some green ones too, but I like don't know. There's like a raw green one, and then there's malachite as well. So for all the
Ooh, that's
things people
powerful.
ask, finances, love, career, communication, so those kinds of crystals. But I need to
Oh, yes, I
see what
love
they
that.
are. I just trust that they're the right ones.
You're like, these look good. They must be working.
Yeah. I trust Heather.
Awesome. I love that.
I'm
I love
yes.
that. So we know your Pump Up Jam is Beyonce's Renaissance album. So that's amazing.
Yes.
For me, I've been on a major Lady Gaga mayhem kick. So I'm listening to
Nice.
Abracadabra like 4,000 times a day. And
It is so addictive. I love it.
oh, so addictive. And my kids, like, if they know that I need to get fired up, they'll like, Alexa,
So
put on
sweet.
Abracadabra. I'm like, yes, come on, let's go. And then we just do our little family booty shaking around the kitchen. So that's been
That's a
amazing.
dream.
Yes. Oh, yes. When your little one, oh my gosh, when she starts dancing and shaking her booty, she's just going to be the cutest little thing you ever saw. Oh my gosh.
I am ready.
It is so,
Like Beyonce, put on Beyonce.
oh, she's going to love it. She's going to love it. So where can people connect with you? Where can we find you? What do you have coming up? I know you mentioned your book. Give us all the things.
All the things. So my website, everything is pretty simple. P is for palmistry, right? Everywhere you go. So my website is
P
is for
dot
palmistry.
P dot, like P period is for palmistry.
Yes, P period is for palmistry on all of the social media. My website is just P is for palmistry. If you have any direct questions, my email is p.isforpalmistry@gmail.com. So you can shoot me direct questions or DM me on Instagram. I am on Instagram and on my website. I list all my upcoming events, so you can come find me at these events. I have a lot coming up in April, and I will have a lot continually throughout the year. You can also email me if you're in the LA area, or sometimes I'll be traveling somewhere and I'll kind of blindly shoot out on stories. If you're in that area and you're looking for a group reading or a reading, let me know.
Fun.
Yeah, so I'll be in New York in June. So if you're in New York and you're looking for a reading, maybe we can connect. But you can also book readings virtually. So I've done readings with people in like all over the world, which has been so
amazing
fun to connect with people in several countries, and people who are traveling, people at expats, people who just find me and they're living abroad or they're from somewhere else. So that's been amazing. So virtual readings I love. So I would love to connect with anyone virtually. That's how we connected. What else? This summer, I'm planning on doing classes again. So I'll be offering a virtual class. You can sign up for my newsletter on my website and keep tabs on when that class will be coming. So I'll be doing virtual classes, in-person classes in the LA area as well. So that's another way to connect. But I think that's all of the ways you can connect to me, really. As for now, Instagram is my main way of communicating. I'm looking to expand. I'll be posting more blog posts as well. So if you enjoy my ramblings on my Instagram posts, you can read my upcoming blog posts whenever I decide to post more. So
that's awesome. It sounds like you have a lot of fun stuff. Yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun. I wish I miss living in LA. There's so many fun things going on. Where I live out here in the middle of nowhere in Northern California, it's hard to find. There are markets, but sometimes they're kind of far from where I live and things like that. So I don't know. We're going to be coming to LA later this month. So I'll keep a watch. Maybe you'll be at something and I can pop by.
Yeah, that would be great. I would love to connect in person.
Yes.
Oh, it makes such a big difference.
Well, thank you so much, Paula. It's been so fun having you on. I just cannot wait for everybody to hear our chat. And I will let you go because I know you got a little cutie pie waiting for you. And I have my children, I hear, creating chaos downstairs.
They're waiting for mom.
Oh yeah, the star of the show here. The moms are always the star of the show. I'm the one that always yells at you guys. How come you guys still like me the most? I'm the mean one, and yet you still like me the most. I don't get it.
It's all the love. It's because you're bringing all the love, even if it's tough love, right?
I know. It is. It is. All right. Well, thank you so much. Have a great night.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ashleigh. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Thank you so much for jumping down the rabbit hole with me. If you connected with this episode in any way, I would love it if you could share it with a friend. Also, please tag me on social media. I'm at mystical.mama.ash or at Big Crystal Energy Podcast, mostly on Instagram. It helps so much getting my episodes out there and finding more magical, kooky, and spooky friends. Sending you all Big Crystal Energy. Cheers!